Okay, guys, this is John. We're back out in the garage again. And I'll tell you what, we need some common sense in America. And apparently, there is none in the White House. And I'm starting to doubt that there's any in DC at all. Yesterday, the President of the United States talked about how that we are expecting upcoming food shortages this summer. Seriously, this food shortages? And then he cites the reason why is because Ukraine and Russia are producing much of the world's wheat. Boy, that's a mess. And that we are buying 90% of our fertilizer, phosphate-based fertilizer, from Russia. Now let's talk about this foolishness for just a minute. There should be no food shortages in the United States. You can write that down. There should be no food shortages in the United States. We are one of the most fertile, agriculturally rich countries on the planet. We should have an abundance of harvest every single year. We should have Florida tomatoes almost year round, California and Florida oranges. We should have southern grapes and Mississippi muscadines. We should be able to harvest the green beans and corn from the mid-Atlantic state. We should have absolutely no issues. We should be able to have the Idaho russet potatoes. We should be able to enjoy the Western Maryland and Pennsylvania white and round potatoes. I grew up in a state, Florida, where agriculture was so important that it was a required class when I was in high school. So this is not something where I Googled a little bit. I don't mind telling you, I know my stuff. And I can tell you, our wheat fields in the Midwest have been ignored. The government has paid farmers not to plant. Increased restrictions so that it made it so hard to profit that we had farmers who shut down because they realized it was easier to make a living working at Walmart than it was running their family farm that had been in their family for generations. If our president really wants to do something, rather than spending millions of dollars to study gender in Pakistan, rather than spending millions and millions of dollars on foolishness like the reproductive habits of ants, which we are spending over $1 million a year, how about we do a couple of things? To start with, we help fund a reignition of our wheat, of our grains, of our corn, of our barley, and help some of those farmers re-enter to subsidize the amount of production that we already have. That would make sense. And then here we go. 90% of our fertilizer comes from Russia. Now, back before I was a believer, I would call that a crock of something. And I'll tell you why. Russia produces about 13 million metric tons of phosphate that's suitable for fertilizer annually. The United States produces, out of only 11 mines, only 9 of them active, 27 total in the United States, and all but 9 are shut down right now. 2 are waiting for the permission to reopen. From 9 mines here in the United States, we produce twice the fertilizer that Russia does. And here's where the foolishness really kicks in. Because of regulations, because of restrictions, the majority of our phosphates that's being mined is considered unsuitable for fertilizer, so it's being put in cattle feed to subsidize as a cereal addition what's going into your cattle feed. It's unfit. Now think about this. It's unfit to spread on the ground. But it's okay to give it to your cow, and then through an indirect osmosis, it's going to come into your system. Absolute foolishness. And then there's the other problem. While we're literally harvesting out of our earth 24 million metric tons annually of phosphate fertilizer, only a small portion of it is being used here as fertilizer. A great deal of it here to enhance cattle feed or to go into mulch. We're selling half of it as fertilizer to other countries. We're selling half of it as fertilizer to other countries. We're selling as much phosphate fertilizer as we're buying from Russia. Think about that for just a minute. And we're selling it cheaper than we're paying. Now, I just came in from feeding animals, from gathering eggs, and I gathered a dozen eggs. We, here at the house, we have our small setup, and we really don't want enough eggs to do anything but take care of ourselves, but we seem to have a little left over. A dozen eggs a day has been the daily gathering. Let me put this in regular layman terms. That's what I understand. Selling phosphates at a lower price and then buying phosphates from Russia at a higher price is like me gathering 7 dozen eggs a week, a dozen a day. And our family needs, because we're big egg eaters, if we needed 6 dozen. But what we do is we keep a dozen, we sell 6 dozen. And then I drive down the road to a competitor and I buy back 6 dozen for twice what I sold mine for. It's one of the most foolish things I've ever seen in my life. It's absolutely unintelligent. If the president, if your senators, if Congress truly cared about the country, there would be a few phone calls made. The very, very, very first would be to our phosphate mines. Say, look, guys, we want our product here. We want it here in the United States. That way, our ground can properly be prepared, our soil properly fertilized and taken care of. The second thing we would do is pass by executive order, if necessary, subsidiary funding for our farmers. Because if we don't have food, the nation is going to fall apart. And there is still time. We're only in March. There's still time to till the soil. There's time to plow. There's time to disc. There is plenty of time yet to turn over fertilizer into the soil and still plant for an incredible harvest this year. This is not something that can be prevented. If we experience food shortage, Joe Biden should be hanged. If we experience food shortages, every single senator and congressperson should be in jail at least, because it can be prevented. The next phone calls that should be made should be to our coal companies and say, look, hands are off. Production can go crazy if you want to. Do as much as you like. Call our petroleum companies and say, drill, take it out, pump the crude, send it to your refineries. Let's be energy independent. Talk to your natural gas companies. Tell them to kick it up a step. There is absolutely no reason for this. There is absolutely no reason for this. It is an intentional hindrance on the people of the United States of America. And your leadership, and I'm saying leadership in a very loose way because they're not leaders. They're supposed to represent you. They're doing a poor job of representing you. They need to understand it's time to step it up and put America first. Put your country first. There is no reason we should depend on Russia for fertilizer or oil or wheat. There's no reason we should depend on the Ukraine or any other nation for a single necessity. We should only go to other countries when we have a desire for something that is a luxury. This is America, folks. And it's time to step back to where we should be. Look, I've been telling you, the elections are coming. The midterm 2022s. Let your representatives know that you mean business. Thank you very much for watching. It's Saturday night. Pray for your country. Go to church tomorrow. Have a great night and God bless you.